Welcome to Free Burn. This is Matt Ballard, your host. This is the podcast where we talk all things mental and behavioral health in the first responder community. Real life firefighters, police officers, EMTs and paramedics, clinicians, and doctors. It's time we have the real conversation and burn the stigma behind first responder mental health, one podcast at a time. All right, folks, we're back. It's Matt Ballard, your host for Free Burn 2023. We're sitting down with Deborah Green today, retired dispatcher for a lot of years. Was with Sacramento PD for 11 months and then El Dorado County Sheriff's Department for 27 years. That's a long time. Military police officer for 2 years, communications specialist for 4 years with the National Guard. Tell us a little bit more about your military service, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. So I went to basic training in 1986.
Okay.
Back in Fort McClellan, Alabama. Went to school at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Got married the first time and went down to Texas. So I was down at Fort Hood for a while with my first husband, and then moved to San Antonio with my second husband.
Okay.
Then moved to California. Yeah, I've been. I
All
think
around
it's
the country.
the nature of the beast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moved back here to Northern California. And during my National Guard time, because it's weekends, you still have your civilian job. So,
Sure.
right before, so back in 1992, I was hired with Sacramento Police and still in the military.
Mhm.
And while I was in the academy for dispatch, we got called to Los Angeles for the LA riots, Rodney King riots.
Yep.
And so I was down there for
As the National Guard, right?
yes, as National Guard.
Yeah.
And we provided security for Parker Center, which was the where the main police department headquarters were for Los Angeles Police Department.
Okay.
And during that time, because I was in communications, I actually did dispatch duty for my company, so that was kind of fun.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
yeah, but
So what
you
was
go
that
in.
like?
It's kind of different, when you're going through basic training and they're training you for the enemy, quote unquote. And so you don't know what that foreign enemy is going to be, but when you're in the National Guard, you're also tasked with civil disturbances. So these are your
Sure.
own people, and that
Mhm.
it was kind of different because I wasn't really expecting to, and not necessarily go against my own people, but to have people that were Californians, that were
Yeah.
Americans being hostile towards me. And it was
Mhm.
different,
Yeah.
kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And I decided at that time not to continue stay in the Guard, just
Sure.
continue my civilian career.
Yeah. So how long was you in the Guard for?
I was in the Guard for 6 years.
6 years.
So
Okay.
my term of service was up in August of 1992.
Yeah. Okay. So Sacramento for what was it?
It was
Get back in
11
here.
months. I was released
11 months.
during probation just because I wasn't
Mhm.
fast enough for the department. It was
Yeah.
even back then,
Pretty busy
Sacramento
department.
was still, pretty busy at that time. It's a lot
Yeah.
busier now, but they have the personnel
Right.
they have the personnel to handle that. So after 11
Sure.
months, then I kind of took a job outside and then started applying and got hired on with El Dorado County.
Yeah. So where is El Dorado County as far as like for people that don't know much about California?
Oh, okay. So it's east of Sacramento, which is in Northern California. It goes from the
Okay.
Sacramento County line, which is near Folsom Lake, if people are familiar, and then goes to the Nevada state line. Well, we also
Okay.
hit Nevada County, so it's kind of, yeah. But up to Lake Tahoe. So, Sacramento to Lake Tahoe. Lots of national forest,
You know
lot
how
of
many square
rural.
miles that is?
Um, I don't remember.
It's big though, right?
It's big. It's
Probably
big,
covering a
yeah.
lot of area. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Just trying to put it in perspective on how big of an area y'all were dispatching for, So I'm sure it was rather busy, probably too for the size alone, right?
We had so our busiest day in El Dorado was our slowest day in Sacramento, if that makes
Okay. Yeah.
sense.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So you're the first dispatcher that I've had on our podcast, and I want to have as many as I can because y'all are like super important to us. I don't know if I'm sure people have told you that, but I want to tell you again that y'all are not recognized enough, in my opinion. As far as police and fire, the way that we look at it, and if it obviously if it wasn't for y'all getting us out of some sticky situations sometimes, I don't know what we'd do. But yeah, y'all don't get thanked enough for what y'all do, in my opinion. And the more that I learn about mental health stuff, I can't even imagine how tough it is for y'all on that end, because you're hearing everything, but you're not being able to see everything, and most of the time you're not able to complete that story. If that makes sense,
Correct.
right?
Correct. And not being
So
there in person to
yeah,
assist either. So me being on the street before and then having to go
hmm
behind the phone, there were times where I just wanted to hand the phone off to my partner, jump into my car and go. It just
yeah,
so it's just all how you handle it. And luckily in the smaller departments, we can get a little bit of closure. Whereas if
hmm
you're in, a big department like LA or New York or even Sacramento, you don't get that closure that you would get with the smaller
yeah,
department.
yeah. I can see that. I mean, like our department, we're 30 on the fire side. We're 30 people, right? And we typically have 2 to 3 dispatchers in dispatch, and they dispatch both for police and fire. So, um, they're busy. And I know
Mhm.
right now, like our dispatchers the amount of people that they have in there it's down right now. They're having a lot of turnover rate. So, they're shorthanded in there. They've actually got police
Mhm.
officers in there to help dispatch. So, um, that's a thankless job. I know that for
Yes,
sure.
it is.
And it's kind of opened my eyes to a lot of, wanting to get more involved with our dispatch and just helping them complete that story. If we run on calls like bad trauma, any kind of
Mhm.
calls, really just going over there, checking on them, saying, hey, y'all good? This is kind of what happened. Took the patient to the hospital or whatever it may be, to try to help them complete that story. And I'm trying to learn as much as I can on with people like you coming on the show and over the podcast. And maybe you can help me out a little bit and say, this is what you need to do, kind of thing, to help these dispatchers out. So yeah, thank you for
But
being on the
yeah.
show. I'm looking forward
Oh,
to it.
you're quite welcome. Eh, I'm quite enjoying going and telling my story and getting the word out that, dispatchers, we are forgotten, and
Mhm.
that that getting you guys in there to see what we do and to talk to us and making sure that we're okay.
Yeah.
We had these critical incidents. Nobody remembers that we're, a couple miles away sitting in a building and
Yep.
and we're hurting too at the
Yeah.
same time, just like you guys out on the street.
Yep. And it's easy at our department because our dispatch center is actually in our complex. It's in between police and fire.
Oh,
So all we
nice.
have to do is walk out the door and, hey, y'all good? We're always cooking over there. So they'll call us every once in a while and say, what are y'all cooking over? It smells great.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
how you build that esprit de corps.
Sure.
and
We don't do it
build those
enough.
relationships. Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
agencies, their dispatch centers cover multiple
Yep.
jurisdictions. So you'll have
Hmm.
a center that covers maybe 13 towns and a county and a couple fire departments. And you're not able to get that one-on-one time, and
Yeah.
requiring having you guys go in there as part of your training and
Hmm.
seeing what we do, and then vice versa,
Sure.
have us come out and see you guys as part of our training, just so that we can know
Yep.
what you guys do, what we do, and then we know what to expect from each other, and we don't have that disconnect.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, absolutely. It's very, very vital to take care of each other, not only just within each department, which we do fairly well most of the time, but we're all one team, and we got to do it together to take care of each
Mm-hmm.
other for sure.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so let's dive into your story a little more, and then just kind of tell us, like your journey. I mean, I know you were diagnosed with PTSD,
Yes.
PTSD, right? And
Is that compound, complex? I don't know which it is today.
complex. I think
Complex
there's no
PTSD
telling, but
along
I
with
think it's
regular.
complex. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's the little, the one. So you have PTSD that you get from a single incident, and then you have the
Hmm.
compound or complex PTSD that is from a career of just
Multiple. Yep.
on top of each other, multiple. So, during my career, I've been involved in multiple shootings, um,
Hmm.
critical incidents, things I hear on the radio, on the phone, on the radio. So, you pick up a phone call and you're hearing somebody actively getting stabbed, or you're hearing somebody um, just, and this sound, that the mother just wailing because they found their child dead. Um,
Yep.
and then you go from those, so we don't get a break. We go from those calls, and as soon as we're done with those calls, we have to answer that next one. So that next one could be the little 3-year-old that's playing on 911 on
Yep.
on a cell phone, or it could be just somebody wanting directions, or so we don't have that recovery time between calls that
Hmm.
a lot of the guys out on the street have. you
Yeah.
know you'll have like maybe an hour to recover, decompress, and go on to the next one, where we're just one right after the other. And so you figure 28 years of that,
Yep.
and then I get to my last critical incident, um October 23rd, 2019,
Okay.
where I was working the channel and I had a deputy shot and killed while I heard the shots,
Right. Mm.
and then had to work through that call.
Yep.
So, a couple more hours after that. I think I went about 3 hours after the the incident actually happened, and stayed on the radio till the second suspect was in custody, and then gave up my radio.
Yeah.
And so that one was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yep.
And
And that's usually how it occurs. I mean,
exactly.
we can stuff over, a 20-year career or however long you may be there. And
Correct.
sometimes it's as short as 6 years. I mean, it could be 2 years. It just depends on how much stuff you got coming in. The more people
Exactly.
the more people that I talk to, through podcasts and stuff and meet, uh, the journey seems to be very similar, but time periods can change. And, obviously the traumas may not be exactly alike, but they're very similar in nature that we see and, or hear. And, yeah, it's interesting to see the similarities between stuff.
Hmm.
One, and then it's interesting to see, I've interviewed guys or gals that have been 4 or 5 years in and are already there, right? Already at that straw that broke the
Right.
camel's back, you know. And then I've talked to people that have been there, like me, 20 years, 15 years before I went through it the first time. So there is no set amount of
Yeah.
time. It
Or
can happen to you
no.
at any time. it just depends
And we're
on.
all individuals, and we're all have our own different stories and how we
Sure.
were brought up and
Yep.
how we can cope. For years, we would go up to my in-laws' place, and
Hmm.
that would kind of be my where I could go and rest. So we went up there, and there was no TVs, no radio, no internet, no phones, nothing. And
Yeah.
it just allowed me to breathe. And we would
Yep.
go up there
Hmm.
quite often. And then my father-in-law passed away in 2010. And my mother-in-law had passed away several years before, but we haven't been up there since. And I think that probably contributed. I wasn't getting
Yeah.
that breakaway from everything.
Hmm.
So,
It's very important for that to happen.
it
To
it's
have,
very
you
important
know,
to have something other than law enforcement. Go out, go fishing. I watch a lot of the Facebook posts of the guys that I used to work with, and they're going out fishing and hunting and doing things that are not law enforcement, and that's really good
right.
because you
Yeah.
have to get away from that.
Yeah. There needs to be that separation there, you know.
Absolutely.
Uh, like for me, it could be podcasting, it could be a number of different things, being with my family or whatever, but just having that separation there and just almost debriefing myself on my days off, and being ready to go
Oh
back
yeah.
that next tour. Very important to do that. So
Oh
that's part of that
yes.
resiliency end of it. So, so yeah, you lost somebody close to you, in the department. So,
Yes.
um, was there other things that outside of department that kind of led up like that cumulative stress? You know, was it just all basically? It's
Well,
typically not all just trauma. It's usually other
no, no,
stuff
no. Well,
stacked on too.
I had another trauma that wasn't even related to the job. In 2015, I had open heart surgery.
Oh,
So,
okay.
to correct uh, a congenital defect on my heart,
Yeah.
and so I had that, and unbeknownst to me, open heart surgery causes its own issues. So I started in therapy in 2016. So I
Okay.
had all those tools that, I was working on. I had, after the surgery, I developed extreme depression and anxiety,
Yep.
and then you have the body trauma rather than the mental trauma that I
Hmm.
was dealing with. So I went through like a whole grief thing, all the stages of grief. And, so I had coworkers that noticed something was different and got me into therapy.
Yep.
And so I went, we're trudging along with that. And then in early 2019, I had been going to a weekly therapy group for
Hmm.
depression, and it was really helping me. But in early 2019, they stopped it. So I had like a couple months before my incident happened that I wasn't going and seeing I was seeing a therapist, but that was every 6 weeks. So I
Yeah.
wasn't getting that weekly input
Mm,
that I
yeah.
had been getting. So then the incident happens, and I go back into the depression and the anxiety. I was using the tools the best I could, but and I was continuing
Overwhelmed.
with therapy.
Yeah.
Then we go into COVID. So you're sticking a person that's had a trauma that
Yep.
shouldn't be isolating and making them isolate. So we had, we couldn't go out. I couldn't go, we couldn't go ride the motorcycle. We couldn't go out and do things. The only thing I could do was go outside and walk.
Yeah.
Um, but, uh, and then compound that with a supervisor that micromanaged and took the symptoms that I was having to be something other than trauma. So I went down that disciplinary route, which also compounds your depression and compounds your anxiety. And I had a supervisor that had been going to school to become a therapist who recognized what was going on and got me onto workman's comp and got me some help.
Yeah. You know, it's very interesting you talk about that, the internal part of it, like what we deal with just from the internal part of the departments that we work in can have a huge negative effect on you as far as like just the not knowing about the mental health aspect of it. That, you know, your supervisors are not trained in it. They just don't know what's going on, you know, and how they
Right.
react to somebody that's having mental health issues, you know. That right there alone is a huge stressor, you know, because they don't know what's going on, and it kind of just makes things way worse for you, you know, because you're not getting the correct amount of help or any help at all, or, you know, just that guidance that you might need from a supervisor. And I've seen that ring true for a lot of the podcasts that I've done with different people. So it's not just the outside stuff that we're seeing. It's the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis internally with our fire departments, police departments, and dispatchers, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely. You know, you could be on a toxic shift to start with
yep.
and have that trauma, and then you're continuing with that toxic shift
Hmm.
and not getting the support that you need from those people. Or you could be in a department that doesn't have peer support. You could be in a department that doesn't give you the options for EAP or let people know that there's EAP out there, which is,
Yeah.
for those that don't know, employee assistance programs that can get you mental health
Hmm.
information. Um,
Yep.
uh,
And those can be
sometimes,
hit or miss
uh,
too.
exactly, you know, with the EAP, I had to go find the person, and it's like I had to make 12 calls before I finally got somebody that would take me. And and
Yeah.
that's wrong, and I should have been helped immediately. You know,
Yeah.
getting psychologists and psychiatrists on staff and departments is one step that we can possibly bypass that and have that
Yeah.
person have the resources to get you to another person uh for permanent help. But have somebody on staff would have helped immensely with what I
Yeah.
was going through.
So I want to talk a little bit about like what is it like to be a dispatcher and like receiving these calls, and how you process them differently than say like a police officer or a firefighter may process them, like bringing on those traumas and not being able to, you know, put a picture to it, or not actually seeing the stuff, just always hearing it. How do you think that affects dispatchers differently than it does police and fire? Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I have the auditory triggers.
Hmm.
Um, I had so I don't have the visual. I have what I thought was going on. You know, the picture in your mind, where you guys have um places, smells, um, certain lights that
Yep.
would trigger these memories. Where I have just the audible,
Hmm.
and maybe a smell if there was something going on in the room at the time.
Sure.
um so there's things that I hear. So let me give you get I used to watch, I don't know if you're familiar with the show 911.
Oh yeah.
It's a the drama version, not the actual in the real centers. But
Yeah. Hmm.
there was a situation that happened, and I was hearing the dispatcher on that particular segment, hearing what she said, and that's what triggered me.
Really.
And yeah, and I wasn't even, you know, I was just doing, so I think I was ironing or something and watching past shows that I had recorded. And at that moment I said, I've got to get rid of all these shows. So, you know, no more Law and Order, no more Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, all of that, all the 911s,
Yeah.
boom, they were gone
Yep. Hmm.
because of just that one. So I went, you know, so now I watch other shows that kind of don't have those same triggers. My
Isn't that
husband
crazy how
loves
that works?
watching. yeah, my husband loves watching true crime, and it's like,
I'm the
really?
same way. We're not watching that. Yep.
It's like, okay, I want to watch like Secrets of the Zoo or Pitbulls and Parolees or
Yeah.
something that, with warm fuzzy animals that I can do.
I get it. Yep. I get
But
it. Yep.
I
Like,
mean, and
I used to.
there's shows that he watches movies and he's like, now he'll tell me what he's going to watch. And and I tell him I'm going to have the option of walking out of the room. You want to watch this? I'm going to go find something else to do. I'm not going to stop you from watching your
Yep.
show. But yeah.
Yep.
So
That's crazy. Like I used to watch a lot of horror movies and loved it. I have all my life, but not so much anymore. And
mm,
it's just because some of it's just too real for me. Just the images and stuff like that can be. I
right,
still watch
right.
some of them, but not near like I used to. Because it's just, it can get to you
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I know
And
exactly what you're talking about.
you
Yeah.
try to avoid it as much as you can, but there's a thing called life. And we've all
Oh,
got to
sure.
deal with some of this stuff sometimes. So,
Yeah.
I have connections on, Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and I still get the announcements of when somebody in a department somewhere in the country has passed due to
Hmm.
officer involved shootings or
Yeah.
whatnot. And so what I do now is I send cards to those departments,
That's awesome.
sympathy cards.
Yeah.
And that helps me out too. It's part of
Yep.
my
Sure.
therapy, I guess you call it.
Hmm. Doing podcasts is part of my therapy. I love doing it because it helps me just to know that there's other people
Absolutely.
out there that have struggled with stuff. I'm not the only one, kind of thing. So
Yes.
yeah, I
And
get that
that's
100%.
another thing. It's nice to get out and give my story and tell people that you're not alone.
Hmm.
There's lots of us out here that are struggling too.
Yep.
Um I think I've kind of turned it to where everybody says, you're suffering with PTSD or you're struggling with PTSD. No, I'm living with PTSD and I'm trying to live with it as
Yeah.
civilly as I can.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
never going to go away.
No,
So,
the stuff that
definitely
we
not
see,
suffering, but
yeah, the stuff that we see and stuff like that, it never goes away. But you get tools through counseling, whatever it may be, counseling, whatever, and you get those tools to be able to help you cope with it better on a daily basis. That's the
oh,
best way that I can put it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
My
Did you do any
my
EMDR?
HMO. Oh, I did brain spotting, which is similar. So
What is that?
you wear headphones and they have the alternating
Yep.
sounds. So they go back and
Mhm.
forth between right and left. And you're just doing a regular therapy session, but then the gal that I have gone to, she'll say, "Oh wait, hold on a second," and she'll tell you not to move your eyes, and then she pulls out her little magic wand, and she's got like a little ball on the end of it, and she'll. So the first time I saw her, she took me into a full panic attack and then
Really?
slowly walked me out of it. And afterwards, I felt great for a month. So
Yeah.
what it did was, just kind of reset some of those
Pathways and stuff.
neurons and things
Yeah.
going on in your brain. But yeah, it works with your eye movement also, like EMDR does, but not with the eye movements as such. But yeah, it
Mhm.
it you know.
And what's
So
that
you're
called?
kind of
Brain
doing
spotting.
brain spotting, yeah. So it's not
Brain
as
spotting.
um and then there's the EMDR and then there's also a new one. uh it's called ARC, Advanced Resiliency. I can't remember what it is. But
Yeah.
there's
There's
another
a
one
bunch. There's
that's
a bunch
like
of different ones out there.
there's one that's kind of oh, it's accelerated resiliency something. But
Mhm.
it's like more of a fast track for to get your brain back in order. And then they've also got, what's that new one? The ganglion block, stellar ganglion block.
I just heard about that one not too long ago.
So, yeah. But I also do CBD and CBN. Because I'm in California and because it's legal, I said, you know what? I need to get these dreams in check, and it actually takes.
Does it help?
So oh my gosh, it took my dreams from, where were they way up here to just, I know I dream now, but it doesn't, I don't wake up. I don't have a lot of emotion to the dreams anymore, which is good.
That's CBD and CBN?
CBD and CBN is the one,
What's the
and CBN helps
CBN?
you. Basically what CBN is the degraded THC, and it helps you sleep. But it's not THC.
I haven't heard of that.
It is THC, but it's not THC. Yeah, and they have all these other ones, CBG, and they all do different things. So,
very interesting.
But I take micro doses of it, and it helps immensely, and it just gets me calm enough to get to sleep and stay asleep all night long. And then I was diagnosed with sleep apnea earlier this year, and so I'm on a CPAP machine. And
how's that work for you?
It's working great. It's fabulous. So I'm getting good straight sleep.
Yeah, and sleep is like super important for people. It's super important for everybody, but especially for people that deal with the stuff that we deal with.
Absolutely. And if everybody, if you're still on duty and still working those weird hours, get into your doctor and check what's going on with your sleep, because that can help immensely.
Really
if I had this machine years ago, I think I would probably still be working, because I'm getting that sleep.
You're actually getting into the different layers of sleep, and like EMDR mimics REM sleep. So if you're not getting into REM sleep, guess what? You're not processing all those thoughts that you had throughout the day, right?
Exactly.
Traumas or whatever they may be. You get into REM sleep, you're somewhat should be processing this stuff, So for people like us that are dispatchers, police officers, and firefighters, up at all hours of the night, crazy hours, we typically don't get too good of sleep. So
no, I was over 20 years on graveyard. So especially when you hit that last day of work and you've got to flip to day shift, because you got kids, and
I don't know how
life doesn't stop. I don't know how I did it either.
Like I've worked at 24/48 for 20 years, and now we just switched to a 48/96. So we're there for 2 days and then off for 4 days. The 2 days can be a little rough sometimes, but the 4 days off is like, love it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we worked 12-hour shifts 3 days a week, and then a 4-hour shift 1 day a week, and I had 3-day weekends every week. It was great.
Yeah. Yep. So it's give and take, I guess.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your healing process. Like, what did that look like for you?
Oh my gosh. So my psychiatrist signed me out in 2020, and I didn't go back to work after that. So I was kind of working with her, and she was a workman's comp psychiatrist, so maybe not the best in the world, but I was getting some regular therapy there. And then the peer support group at my last employer got me a scholarship to go to a mental health retreat that worked with first responders and did some horse therapy with them. So I was there for a week there, and that was wonderful. And that's where I had my brain spotting the first time. So they kind of introduced you to different different things to help you on this mental health journey. So massage, they had some lady there with Reiki, but I wasn't quite hip on that. But then the horse therapy and the brain spotting, and then journaling, which I had been doing before, but they kind of, showed us how to do some more of that type, and that really helps. Um,
Yeah.
then kind of early 2021 was kind of up in the air because workman's comp determined that I was permanent disabled.
Yep.
So they kind of they stopped all my therapy, they stopped everything, and I was kind of in limbo for a while. And so I had to make that big decision because I was permanently disabled. I couldn't return to work. So which retirement do I want to take? And so I had to make that decision, and I took a regular retirement, so I didn't take a medical because the medical actually would have paid out less than my
Yep.
regular retirement. And the regular retirement only took 3 days to approve me rather than,
So what?
up to 6 months on the other.
Why did they stop your therapy and all that during that time? Is this what they
They stopped
do,
my
or?
yeah, that's what workman comp does, is they just stop therapy. So because I was still on the medical, um
Hmm.
I the medical that I had, um I went and did there I just went back to them,
Right.
um because I had a lawsuit going, and it was like, I need this therapy, and they just cut me off completely with workman's comp. um
Wow.
I don't think the workman's comp system knows how to deal with people with mental issues that
Yeah.
are job related. um
Sure.
so something that we need to look at.
Yep.
And
I know
so,
every state is a little bit different, but
yeah.
yeah.
And then
Like,
so I retired, and I've been on therapy ever since. And
mhm.
um I watch my grandson, who's now 3, every Monday through
Yep.
Friday, and he's been a
Hmm.
big part of my healing process. Gets me out meeting people because we go to the park and play, and
Sure.
gets me
Keeps you
out doing
busy.
physical activity. Yes, he does. He's actually walking the 3 miles with me now rather than being
That's
pushed
awesome.
along in the stroller. So that's
That's
kind of
cool.
fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what kind of information would you tell current dispatchers? New ones coming
Oh
in,
my gosh.
tenured ones. What's some good advice for those dispatchers?
Go get a therapist. If you don't believe it, uh, I don't care. You're going to have that time where you're going to need it. And if
Yeah.
you want to make this your career, having a therapist that knows military or law enforcement um, is a big plus. And get that relationship. If the first one doesn't work, find somebody new, but get that person that, should you have a critical incident that does affect you, you know where to go, and you have the tools that will keep you going forward.
Yeah. So what about like your coworkers and stuff like that when you were working? Did y'all have like table talk like fire department does, where you sit down and say, "Hey man,
Oh
that
gosh,
that
yeah.
call really sucked." You did talk about stuff like that then.
Oh yeah, we taught we I when I had been there so long, so every once in a while I would be in charge of the shift, and I always encouraged it, because
Yeah.
if we don't talk about it and you hold it inside, that's bad. And
Yep.
the culture at the time in dispatch was, don't talk about it, suck it up, you're here to do a job. I don't know how else to explain, it was just,
It's the same.
it
It's the
was
same with police and
kind
fire.
of toxic. And if you
Yeah.
don't talk about it, I mean, good gracious, a lot of shifts have what they call choir practice after shift. I don't know if the fire guys do, because you guys would kind of live together for a day at a
Yeah.
time, 2 days at a time. So I think it's easier for you guys to talk about things.
Right.
Um, whereas cops have more of that. If I talk about it, if I have mental health issues, if I have feelings, I'm not a good cop,
Yeah.
and that's kind of
Mhm.
the culture that it is. Firefighters, not so much. I think even watching stuff like Chicago Fire or 911, you see that they all talk to each other, where the cops
Yeah.
don't.
Not always, but we
Not,
do for the most part.
you guys
No, I mean,
sit down and have dinners together, and you guys sit and watch TV together, and you're there, and
yeah,
where it's a lot different because when you're a police officer, you're in that car alone or maybe with one partner, and uh, sometimes that partner isn't as supportive as you would want them to be, you know
yeah.
and there's that macho attitude, and you know
No weakness. Don't want to show any
no
weakness.
weakness. That's right.
Yeah. Yep.
And a lot of departments don't understand that if you have a therapist, it's not weak, it's making you be stronger.
Yeah. I've said
Because
it
I would
several
much
times on
rather
different
have my
podcasts.
backup have a therapist than my backup not have a therapist and do something wrong and I end up
Yeah.
getting hurt.
Yeah. Well, if you're not mentally fit, in my opinion, whatever you're going through, you may not be 100% there
Right.
when you need to be 100% there.
What you don't want somebody answering your 911 call that sitting there crying because, the world
Yeah.
is caving on that person.
Yep.
You want somebody that can help you out. And actually all these classes and things that I went to over the last few years actually helped do my job. I was able
Yeah.
to recognize in somebody having a panic attack and help them through that so that I could get the information that I needed from them. So, it
Yep.
just it's a
It gives
win-win,
you a different
actually.
perspective, doesn't it?
Yes,
Like
gives you a
like
big perspective.
we run on those calls all the time, you know, anxiety calls, panic attack. And one, it gave me a lot more empathy for those people because I've
Mhm.
dealt with it personally. And then for the ones that for whatever reason haven't sought the right help or whatever, because of whatever reason, you can kind of help those people out, with
Oh
breathing
yeah.
techniques or giving them
Mhm.
resources, so
Absolutely.
when you've been on this side of it, it's a lot easier to have empathy for somebody and be able to help them and get them to the right
Yes.
people to get help. Not only on a within the fire department, police department, and dispatchers, but the people that we serve too.
Yes.
It's a it goes both ways, right?
And
So
being able to recognize it in a coworker that, hey, maybe you need to take a break, or, hey, do you need to go home, or, that kind of thing.
it changes a lot of things about our lives
Yes,
when
it
we
does.
go through stuff like this. You know, I mean, it changed a lot of stuff on the fire side for me, and then it changed a lot of stuff on my family side internally. It made
Oh
me
yeah.
look at things a lot differently, on both sides. So, not saying that I don't have bad days because I still have bad days sometimes. We all do,
Oh yeah.
but that
Yes, me in Home Depot yesterday, it was bad.
yeah,
Holy
hey,
moly.
it still happens.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's like I
but
had
you're
the
able
best
to bounce back a
intentions.
lot faster.
My
Yeah.
my husband always laughs at me because I'll leave because I have a receptionist job on the weekends, and so when I come home I'll hit a couple stores before I get home, and he always
Hmm.
laughs at me when I go, oh, I'm going to go to Target and Costco and the grocery store on the way home, and he goes, you sure you want to do that? He goes, Target, really?
Yep.
So yeah, it's just it's just I still have that um it's not a fear, but it just when I get over peopled is how I
Yeah.
refer to it. Too many people and too many
I'm the
things
same way.
going on, and
Yep.
so
You're
yeah.
overstimulated. Overstimulation. Yep.
And yeah,
Yeah.
yesterday at Home Depot, I just got that way. I just go in for a water filter for the fridge, and it was like, okay, I dropped had some stuff that I was taking. I just set it down and walked out of the store.
Yep. See y'all later. I'm out. Yep.
Bye.
Been there,
I'll be
done
back
that.
tomorrow.
Yep. Got to get out of here. Can't deal with it. Especially around Christmas time when things start getting
Oh
really
my
busy.
gosh, it's just yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah. I can't do it.
Yep.
Amazon is my friend.
There you go. 100%. Yep. I know how that goes too. I've gotten better at that, but there was a time there that, man, there was a couple times I just straight walk up out of stores, just too
Oh
much
yeah,
going on.
yeah.
But now it's got a lot better. Usually I'll just practice my techniques and stuff and just calm down a little bit and everything's fine. But yeah, I get that 100%, how that can affect you. And it sucks sometimes, for sure.
Well, especially when you're trying to get stuff done and,
Yeah.
it's like it takes me a half an hour to drive home usually on the weekends, and it's like I pass by all these stores and it's like I can get all this done and not have to do it during the week. But,
Right.
then I get home and I'm in tears and
Hmm.
wishing that I could drink alcohol.
Right.
Like I really need a beer, but I can't.
Yep.
So, it just, and then I get home and I'm crying and, just kind of do my
Yeah.
relaxation techniques and,
Good to go
maybe
again. Yeah.
take my gummy a little early,
Yep.
get all mellowed out.
That's what I'm talking about for sure. Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't do that down here. We could, but you never know what the
Yeah, I
repercussions are
don't
in
know.
Texas.
I don't know where I'd be if I moved down there with you guys. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that, uh, did y'all have peer programs going through dispatch,
Well,
or
we
is it
had it
something
with
that?
the department. So a whole peer
Okay,
support program within the department.
it's
So,
kind of like us now. Yeah.
yeah, when it first started out, we had oh, pardon me. We had a
No, you're
manager
good.
that only allowed one dispatcher into the peer support. And when that peer support person is an abusive supervisor, it just kind of nobody uses the peer support. So, um
Yep.
they kind of changed it. We had a new sergeant take over and they changed it they tried to get as many people as they could. So people on patrol, people from dispatch, people from records,
Hmm.
or um um a lot of the civilian, get them involved too, because it not
Yeah.
only, when you have a critical incident, it not only affects your dispatchers and your cops or your firefighters, but it affects everybody in the department, especially when you have
Mhm.
a loss. If
Yeah.
somebody's shot and killed or somebody commits suicide, it affects everybody. So you need to be able to have people that you can rely on, that,
Multiple.
as many people as you can. And
Yeah.
so our peer support was excellent. So when I had my first shooting call back in the early 2000s, um we had no peer support at that time.
Hmm.
EAP wasn't given as a resource on a
Yeah.
regular basis. I was kind of left to my own devices driving home. I didn't know if my guy had been shot, if he was alive or dead, or what was going on, because nobody told me what was going on. Whereas my last critical incident, we had the chaplains there within an hour.
Yep.
Peer support was in there within 3 or 4 hours. We had a critical incident debrief immediately. That,
Hmm.
you know so, and we're talking like 5 in the morning, I guess, 5 or 6 in the morning, we had that first debrief. and they did it separately for everybody. So when we were done as dispatchers, they had us first, and then they grabbed the people from that shift, as they were coming in. And so, you had those debriefs within those first 24 hours. And then when I went home, I made sure to call my therapist and get emergency appointment for that day or the next day. And then I also had a peer support person at another department who happened to be near where my therapist was. So as soon as I went from the therapist, I went over to peer support, over to her place, and we sat and talked for 2 hours there. So I had, so
were y'all separate from police and fire when y'all did debriefings? And did y'all ever get together with each other?
Yeah, when back 20 years ago, we would do the tactical debriefs, which was going in and finding out and they always made sure to invite us to those. But it's not the same as going in and doing the critical incident. But I think having the smaller groups helped immensely.
Y'all were doing diffusings, I bet, is what it was.
Yeah, right at the beginning, and then 2 days later we had another one with a therapist there.
Debrief.
Yeah, but it was just dispatch. And I think it worked out better than the Kumbaya meeting we had a couple years prior to that, where it was a therapist that came in, and it was everybody on that shift. So the dispatchers and the cops came in, and we're all talking, but it just kind of didn't mesh well. But seeing the progression over the years.
Yeah, it helps sometimes to get everybody that was involved in that incident, right? Everybody that was involved to try to complete that story. To come to a resolution in your mind.
Absolutely.
So that's the advantage of getting everybody together. But sometimes you're doing a diffusing or whatever, it's better just to do smaller groups sometimes.
Yeah.
And getting that perspective there. Yeah.
And the guys that were first on scene out there, so there were 4 total that were first on scene. My deputy that was shot, he had a ride along from another department. So there was that gentleman, and then 2 other deputies from our department. One of them didn't come back at all. The other one came back after 6 weeks, stayed a little bit, would go out again, come back, go out, before he finally retired just before I did. And then I was back for a year before I was out permanently.
Okay.
So of the 5 of us, nobody lasted more than a year.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I can see how it happens, though.
Oh, yeah. And so people don't realize that there's a ripple effect that happens when you have a critical incident, and it's not just that person or 2 people that are involved. There's other things that go on. So, and this critical incident for me was a big example of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it can definitely affect everybody around you. Within apartments, and outside.
Well, and I had already been in therapy and knew and had tools. So I'm just wondering, what would I have been like had I not been in therapy when this happened?
Yep.
So, it's kind of like, would I have been worse? Would I have tried to commit suicide? Would I, nobody knows.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like the perfect storm that year for me. So, but the best I can do
it's happened to me twice.
But I'm taking all of this, and I'm being the one standing on the soapbox screaming at the top of my lungs, we've got to do better.
Yeah. Keep doing it. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing, and especially on the dispatch end of it. So you're being recognized. People are starting to see. I'm going to do everything that I can to bring more light to dispatchers, just as much as police and fire. So.
That it's a thankless job, and people forget we're there.
Yeah.
But the culture is changing too. With
Yeah.
um California and a lot of other states have finally recognized us as first responders, which is great. We
Hmm.
still have to do that at the federal level. We're working on that. A lot of the good people at Capitol Hill uh, working.
Yeah.
I think it's called the 911 CARES Act.
I'm
I'm
gonna have
not
to
sure
look
if
that
it's
up.
passed yet. Yeah. Um, and that would recognize dispatchers at a federal level as first responders,
Yeah.
which
That's crazy
is
that they
what we
don't.
need, because we
Some
don't
states
get the
don't recognize
same.
that. Yeah.
Exactly, and we don't get the benefits like you guys do. So
Yep.
if you are go out for mental health within your job, or even a cop or
Hmm.
whatever, it's done differently, where we're kind of like, oh well,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." Yeah, I was the
Sorry.
first. Yeah, I was actually the first
Mm,
dispatcher to go through workman's comp for a mental health issue in our
yeah.
department.
Yeah. And
So,
it's still a struggle even with police and fire. I know in our state it's getting better, but there's several states that don't even recognize it as a workers' comp issue.
yeah,
You know. So
and that's got to change, because we're going to lose. And you look at the suicide. I mean, um just this last month, we lost 4 out of LAPD in a 24-hour
police officers,
period. Yeah, sheriff's, was it LAPD? Or I to be honest, but out of LA there was one department that lost 4 people to suicide, and that was active duty and retired.
wow.
Dallas has lost a couple. But yeah, suicide seems to be the more, um we're losing
Yeah.
more that way than we are actual officer involved shootings now. And that's not
It's the
good.
same way with fire. We're at 93 right now, and that's through the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. They do the tracking for fire, EMS, and
Hmm.
dispatch. And I looked at the numbers earlier today and yesterday. I think we're at 99 firefighters. I want to say it was
That's
13 EMS, and then 4 or 5 dispatchers. And let me tell you, that's only at 60% reporting. So
yeah.
who knows what the actual numbers are?
It's not good, and it shouldn't be the only choice.
Mm-mm.
We've got to get in there and show people that if you feel that you're at your limit there's other things you can do. You can leave this profession and do other things and do good. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there doing that.
Yep. Absolutely. So wrapping up, if you could tell dispatchers one thing, the most important thing that are dealing with these issues, what would you say? I know there's a ton of important things, but what would be probably the most
My-
important thing to move forward?
to move forward, get a therapist. I mean, and there's
Reaching out, right? Reaching out
reach out
and
if
asking
you
for
need
help.
help. And there's so many people out here that are willing to help, and if it's not
Yeah.
through your department, reach out to me. And there
Hmm.
I'm always available to listen. But there's also, First Responder Support Network has a lot of resources, and they go
Yep.
state by state, and they're a fabulous resource to look at.
Yeah.
I know they have a website, and I don't know what that is right now, but just reach out and talk to somebody. Say you need
Yeah.
help.
Yep.
I mean, I would much rather
Take
talk
that
to
first
somebody
step.
at 3 in the morning than, go to their funeral at 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I hear you. I'm the same way. Yeah. So with that, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If you're giving me putting like your email or whatever, any kind of contact information you want to share with anybody, I'll put
Oh
that
my
in the
gosh. Yeah,
description box of the podcast.
I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm
Okay.
on Facebook, also on TikTok.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, now that I've retired, I'm using this to my advantage.
Sure.
There's a lot of social networking out there, and getting out there and saying, "Hey, I'm here if you need to talk."
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you for being that voice for our dispatchers. There
Oh,
needs to
thank
be,
you for having me here and let me talk. This has been great.
yeah, and we'll do it again, for sure. Yeah, I need more dispatchers to come on because I know it's just as much of an issue for y'all as it is for police and fire.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
when
Get
anybody
yourself
says
some
we need
fire
y'all,
dispatchers on, because those fire
yeah,
gals, I tell you.
yeah. Well, thank you, Miss Deborah, for coming on. Just like I tell
Oh, thank you,
on
Matt.
every episode, if you're struggling, if you're dealing with suicide ideation or whatever, 988 is a suicide crisis lifeline. Man, don't be afraid to reach out. That is the first step. Well,
Hmm.
really acknowledging that, hey, I need some help, and then stepping forward and saying, I need some help.
Yes.
Making that first step is life changing.
Yes.
With that, if you feel like you can't reach out to 988, get a hold of one of us, freeburn2023@gmail.com. You can reach us through our website, all the social media platforms. We'll put Miss Deborah Green stuff up on the podcast description box. So if you need to contact her, I'm sure she's okay with that. And yeah, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. Burning that stigma
Absolutely.
one podcast at a time.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to talking to you soon, and keep doing what you're doing, being that voice, being that advocate. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Free Burn 2023 podcast. If you or somebody you know is in crisis, reach out to the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988. Or if you're looking for counseling resources, contact us at freeburn2023@gmail.com. We'll do our best to get you to where you need to be. Let's keep burning that stigma, one podcast at a time.